Excited to tell you a little bit more about the shipping angle from a crowdfunding perspective. You can go to the next one. Cool. Sweet. So first off, just wanted to again introduce myself. My name is Matt and wanted to go through a little agenda on what we're going to be talking about today. So first off, going to talk a little bit more about why shipping is really essential and important for your campaign success, then going a little bit deeper into what you need to know about delivering before launching a crowdfunding campaign, then talk a little bit more about key considerations when it's finally time to ship your products out, then dive into my favorite topic, volumetric weight versus product weight. And then last two, just talking about some latest trends, what influences shipping costs. And then finally, to end it off, talking a little bit more about our Easyship Collect tool, our shipping collection tool that we provide to crowdfunding campaigns. So again, this is an outline of what we're going to go over today. And yeah, let's get right into it. Cool. So first off, I wanted to talk a little bit more about why shipping is so critical for crowdfunding. So shipping is like one of the most important parts of crowdfunding, right? And as you can see here, shipping costs can really add up pretty quickly and can be one of your biggest expenses when it comes to shipping and fulfilling a crowdfunding campaign, right? And it can eat into your profits. And without thinking about it early on, it's going to be, it could be a burden. It could be a pretty big burdensome for creators launching on Indiegogo specifically. So we've crunched the numbers, and what we've seen is effective shipping works out to being around 10 to 15% of funds raised, sometimes up to 20% max. And it really depends on the type of product. So if you have a really heavy product and it's an expensive product, it could increase that percentage points, but that's what we find on average. But what we do say is with the proper planning, getting accurate quotes, looking into taxes and duty calculations early on, fulfillment services, as well as figuring out like the right mix of couriers that is great for your product. We make it really easy to cut down on shipping costs and really plan accordingly when going into a crowdfunding campaign. Next, before you launch, what do you need to know? Why am I here today, right? So these are a couple things to keep in mind before launching a crowdfunding campaign. So the first one we talked about a little bit earlier, calculating shipping and fulfillment costs before launching a campaign. I recommend coming to someone like myself where we can really have an intro call, understand what your dimensions, weights are of your product, where you're shipping from, where you think your orders are going to be coming from, and I can give you a quote based on the details that you provide to me. So you have an idea of, okay, if I'm shipping to all of these countries, what is it going to cost to ship around the world? So you can also inform your backers early on what those estimates might be. Next, when you're looking at different markets around the world, I would really advise to open up your markets to other than just the United States. Like, as you can see here, the United States is a massive market for crowdfunding, but a large portion of backers actually live outside of the United States. So I would say like 98, 99% of my campaigns that I work with open it up worldwide, and we make it really easy at Easyship to ship anywhere in the world. So again, I would really not just focus on the US market or the EU market. I'd really focus on all of the markets and understanding what shipping costs are before going into your crowdfunding campaign. And then lastly, again, we'll talk a little bit more about this as well, but understanding taxes and duties. Again, when I first started Easyship 5+ years ago, I really had no idea the impact of taxes and duties. But as I've been here, as I've seen people succeed and fail, from a crowdfunding perspective, it's been really important to understand and keen in on what those taxes and duties will be. So yeah, next slide. You can go back one. You can go back one, sorry. Okay, perfect. Sorry, one more, my bad. Nice. So next, just wanted to give a little example here of shipping a fashion item to Singapore versus Argentina. And the nice thing about Easyship and our technology is we'll really break it down for you line item by line item. So you'll be able to see, okay, what is the shipping cost? But also, for instance, you'll be able to see what the duty and tax threshold is going into Singapore as well as Argentina, looking at the tax rate, import duties, and then being able to kind of total out an amount for you so you understand, okay, what is a fully landed cost here? So as you can see, a pretty light fashion item going to Singapore, There's a duty threshold, 400 SGD and 0 USD for Argentina. And then as you can see, the tax and import rates are a lot more substantial in Argentina. So 21% tax rate, 35% duty rate because it's a fashion item. And as you can see here, the costs are going to be a lot more significant when shipping to Argentina compared to Singapore. So again, this is really just showcasing, okay, when you upload your orders into Easyship, when you're understanding shipping costs for your backers, we'll break it down for you, so you understand like what each line item is, what those import taxes and duties are going to be, so you have full visibility on cost and what's going on. So hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Next. And these are just some things to think about, things to understand when thinking about shipping a product, thinking about coming to an expert myself. These are some questions that I ask on discovery calls. So these are just some pretty good tidbits to understand early on. So number one, dimensions and weights. It sounds obvious, but it's super, super important. So we're going to want to know the dimensions of your product, the weight of your product. Shipping costs are all based on the size and weight. We also really want to understand the box size if you are going to be shipping it in a larger box or a smaller box or a poly bag or a bubble mailer. We really want to know those details so we can key in on the exact shipping cost for your backers. Next, location of manufacture. This is also pretty key in order to strategize where and how to fulfill your items from. If it's coming from China, if it's coming from Korea, wherever it may be, we can ship from wherever in the world, but we want to understand where those goods are going to be from a manufacturing perspective and what the origin is going to be. So that's number two. Number three is product category. This is also very, very important. We want to understand if the battery has, if the product has a battery, liquid, or magnet, if it's considered dangerous goods. Some couriers won't take specific types of batteries, and some couriers will. And if it has a specific type of battery, it could be more expensive. So again, this is all covered in the discovery phase when talking to an expert like myself. But we really want to understand what the product is so we can give you the most accurate shipping cost possible. Next, wanted to go over 4 key considerations and factors when shipping around the world and what affects shipping costs really. So number one, distance, domestic or international. The further you are from the origin, it's going to be more expensive to ship. It sounds pretty obvious, but some people ask like, oh, Matt, like why is it so much more expensive to ship via air from Hong Kong to the US versus domestically? It's just the distance. So depending on your strategy, it's really important to understand what those costs are going to be depending on where you're fulfilling from. I alluded to this earlier, but the type of cargo being shipped, if it's a really heavy product, it's probably going to be a lot more expensive to ship. If it has a battery, it's also going to be more expensive to ship. So the type of product and the type of cargo is really important to understand and can affect and impact shipping costs. And then also next, mode of transportation. If it's going via truck, via air, via sea, those all come in at different price points. Usually air freight is a lot more expensive than sea freight, but it takes a fraction of the time. Right now we see sea freight probably being the least expensive when moving goods, let's say from China into the US. But again, it could take up to 30, 40 days on the sea to arrive in the United States. So again, a lot of things to consider there. And then also, lastly, seasonality and market demand. So there are some key points of the year where shipping costs are a lot more expensive. So I would say like, especially in the United States, like October on to the end of the year, that's when the couriers usually increase the prices just because of Thanksgiving and then the holiday season. We see a lot of peak surcharges during that time. So I would say end of the year, end of Q3, all through Q4, you can see a hike in not just demand, but also price from a shipping perspective. So these are some 4 just considerations to think about when shipping your product around the world. Now, wanted to go over product weight versus volumetric weight. So this is one of my favorite topics because this is one thing that I learned the hard way when I started at Easyship. It's really important for you to understand that the couriers will not necessarily just take the weight of your actual product, right? They really take into account the box size, right? So when breaking it down, the product weight, just think actual weight of the product, right? So let's say you have a cell phone. The product weight is going to be the weight of that actual cell phone, no packaging, anything along those lines, just the physical weight of that package. And then the volumetric weight known as dimensional weight by some couriers is usually what the courier will change. So the volumetric weight takes into account the packaging, the shipping box that you're going to be using, right? So if the shipping box is larger or heavier than the actual product weight itself, it could increase the weight break that the courier will charge you at. So that's why I really want to stress that figuring out the right packaging for you is super, super important because again, it could impact shipping costs specifically. So early on, I would ask questions about packaging. What shipping box should I use? Because again, we want to make sure that you're not using a massive shipping box for a really little product, vice versa. But again, this is super, super important. And again, really want to keen in on that. Nice. So next, just wanted to do a little case study right here. And it really kind of ties together the volumetric weight topic that we talked about a little bit earlier. So we had a customer a little while back that we were able to do a packaging consultation and understand, hey, we can actually reduce the packaging size by 2 centimeters. It seems crazy. It seems a pretty minuscule amount, but it reduced the volumetric weight from 1.53 kg to 1.4 kg. And that on average saved this customer around $3 per package. And again, that doesn't seem like a lot if it's like 3 packages, but this person had 3,000 plus orders going out. So we were able to save them close to $9,000, right? So again, this is super, super important to really figure out boxes early on rather than later. Just so again, we can figure out how to cost optimize your shipments and just make sure that you're cutting costs when it comes to shipping. Cool. Now, kind of the hot topic these days, navigating tariffs in Section 321. Again, there are a lot of things kind of going on right now in the news on what's going to be happening with imports into the United States coming from China or Mexico or Canada. And for a long time, a lot of our crowdfunding campaigns were using Section 321, which essentially stated that if you were shipping a product from outside of the United States into the United States and it was going direct to customer, and the individual package threshold was under $800, you'd be able to bypass all taxes, duties, and tariffs. And as of right now, it looks like that is going to be no more. It looks like they are kind of cutting that out from a Section 321 perspective. As we are looking into it right now, it looks like there's a minimum of 10% on any product coming in from China specifically. But again, it's really important to kind of come to an expert like us to really be able to help import your goods into the US and to other regions properly. But as of right now, Section 321 is going to be no more. And there's going to be some sort of a duty in tariff on all products coming in from China specifically. So again, really important to keen in on, really important questions to ask before you're shipping products out. And again, we really do have a pulse on what's going on in the kind of tariff market and import export. So once we have more information on what's going on, we'll let you guys know. But just want to let you know that, again, this is going to be no longer Section 321, and it's really important to factor in these types of costs when shipping post February 2025. Now I wanted to go into a little bit more on how campaigners charge for shipping. So there are a couple different ways to charge for shipping for a crowdfunding campaign. Some people like to bake the shipping price into the retail cost of the product. I would say like pre-COVID, that's what a lot of campaigners were doing. Sometimes people charge separately for shipping at checkout on the campaign page, and then others charge backers at the end of the campaign using a pledge manager. To be honest, I recommend not baking the price of shipping into the cost of the product and charging shipping at the beginning. I recommend collecting shipping costs a lot closer to when you're actually going to ship. As you guys have probably seen, like post-COVID, everything's going on in the world. Shipping prices fluctuate from week to week, sometimes month to month, quarter to quarter. So it's really important to charge shipping costs closer to when you're actually going to ship your products out. So again, would recommend not baking it into the price of the product or charging at the beginning of the campaign. I recommend charging it closer to the end of the campaign when you're going to be shipping your products out. Because again, a lot of the campaigners that I work with have some sort of manufacturing delays. And again, if you charge for shipping at the beginning, you could end up shooting yourself in the foot because it could be 6 months, 7 months, a year go by without shipping. And then shipping prices get a lot more expensive. So again, just really think about that before charging shipping costs. Nice. So we actually have a solution to collect shipping costs from backers, and we have this solution called Easyship Collect, and really excited to talk about it today. It's a simple survey tool where 3 to 4 weeks before you start shipping, Easyship will actually send out a survey to all of your backers. And in that survey, backers can do 4 things. Number one, they can edit and confirm their address really, really easily. Let's say they backed the product, 6 months later they moved, they need to edit their address, they can do that. Number two, backers will be able to pay for shipping on the spot. We can give them up to 3 options. We can give them the cheapest option, meal tier, expedited option, just so they have options when it comes to shipping. Third is pay for taxes and duties on the spot, all in one place. If any taxes and duties are due, backers will be able to pay for taxes and duties on the spot. And then lastly, if the backer wants to add insurance onto their package, they can as well. So we make it really easy to collect shipping costs with our survey tool called Easyship Collect. Cool. That's it. I appreciate it, guys. I'll give it over to Adeeti.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. That was really exciting and helpful to learn. I feel like every time I have a session with you, I learn something more. So that's really cool. Awesome. Yeah, as Matt mentioned, I'm here with Indiegogo. We are one of the major crowdfunding platforms that serves a number of campaigners worldwide. And our backer audience is also worldwide and here to help support the ideas that they're really excited about. So if we go to the next slide. I wanted to start with our mission because I think it is so important for us at Indiegogo to kind of keep this at the center of what we do when we really work with our campaigns, when we work with our backers. This is the driving force for us, and everything we do and everything we build is kind of around this exact idea. So the idea is this, what you can see it here. It's empowering people to unite around ideas that matter to them, and then together bringing those ideas to life. And so, Indiegogo, the name Indiegogo actually comes from indie films. This is kind of how we originally started many, many years ago. And the idea was, how can we get people to support an idea that is exciting to them, that does not exist yet, and help that happen as a crowd? And so this was in the early days when crowdfunding was brand new. And I think there were very few people who were even thinking about this. And Indiegogo was one of the first to actually do this. And so, it's in the name itself of the work that we do here, crowdfunding. It is bringing the crowd together to fund an idea and bring it to market. So that's what we're here for. That's what we build for. And that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. So the next slide, I think we'll talk us through some of the ways that which we are different, and again, how this aligns with some of our mission that I mentioned earlier. So the first thing is we have really targeted backers. We've spent years and years building up an email list and building up lists of supporters, both through social media, through email, through different channels like this, who are just really excited to be a part of the crowdfunding community, either as a campaigner or as a supporter. And so we do our best to try and amplify campaigns on the platform with our newsletters. We reach backers with ideas that are currently on the platform and exciting, and we keep them there through those newsletters as well. And so the second thing I wanted to mention was our product features. So we are constantly trying to innovate as a platform. We've got new product features rolling out. It feels like every other month, and some of them are small and just are ways for us to iterate on the general experience of using our platform to make it easier for people who are, considering running a campaign. How do we make sure their back end is as smooth as possible? How do we make sure the front end reads beautifully to our consumer audience? But also, how do we continue innovating on what crowdfunding is? We came out with the idea of secret perks many, many years ago, and it's been this tool that I think has allowed campaigners to access an audience with an exciting perk offering that they wouldn't be able to offer otherwise. This is something we innovated, I want to say 9 years ago or so at this point, and we're only just now starting to see other competitors start to pick up things like that and do and create product features that are similar to this. So as a platform, we are really innovation focused, and it's just fully embedded in how we create and use the platform. It's also really important for us to hear feedback from our customer audience. And so when working with Indiegogo and we're working on a crowdfunding campaign, you always have access to our team, and any feedback is good feedback, and we pass it directly onto our product team, who takes it all into consideration when they're doing their user research and building on this. And then points 3 and 4, just talk a little bit about our two major verticals that we work with. So tech and hardware campaigns. So, things like e-bikes or the Lomi that you have at the final slide over here at the bottom, which is a composter that can kind of exist on your tabletop. And so all of these are really cool tech and hardware innovations that didn't exist or existed in different forms. And people who came to our platform to build and sell these to a new audience were really trying to innovate on something exciting. And so we find on average that the campaigners that are doing tech and hardware campaigns raise about 157,000 on average on Indiegogo, which is really exciting and goes a long ways to actually bringing that product to market. With creative and film campaigns, their needs are usually a little bit different. And so we find that they have typically a smaller raise. So about $20,000 on average is kind of what we see there for film campaigns. We do have plenty of campaigns that have raised, $1 million for films or for TV shows. But I think for a lot of indie filmmakers and a lot of smaller producers, 15,000, 20,000 goes a really long way for them. And so that really is the sweet spot for us. So the next slide. We'll go a little bit more into some of these key stats that I mentioned. So tech and innovation for us, we are actually, our average for how much our campaigns raise is actually higher than most other platforms, especially for tech and innovation campaigns. And so overall, the number of campaigns we have tends to raise more on Indiegogo than if they were to choose another platform. And so on average, it's about 157K. And that is because of some of the things that I mentioned. These innovative tools that we're developing, our team that is constantly there listening and taking feedback and responding to questions. And then also just our engaged backer audience who is excited to help support products like this. If you wanted a deeper breakdown of some of the specific categories that tend to do really well on the platform within tech and innovation, I would say, camera gear really was having a moment. And so on average, we would see about 300K for some of those campaigns. Transportation has always done pretty well. So that's things like e-bikes, and they would raise on average about 200K. Energy and green tech can really span, and it can mean a lot of different things. But on average, you can see here 193K is what we typically saw. Travel and outdoors, lots and lots of travel and outdoors products, especially as we are moving into summer, we see a lot of those launches happen. And those are about on average 188K for those campaigns. Home goods, 183, and other innovative products, this is a bit of a broad category. It's 275K. And then the thing I also wanted to mention is that we are an international platform and have been from very early on. And so our campaigner audience comes from all over the place. We support many, many countries, and you're able to raise funds in most cases in your local currency. But if not, you can always work with our team and work with Stripe Connect to create a bank account in one of the countries that we do support, and then you can raise funds in that currency and have a very easy wire transfer over to your own bank account. We have lists available for which countries are supported online as a campaigner. So that's something that's very easy to look up. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out to our support team just to confirm. But our backer audience, I would say, is really concentrated in the US, the UK, Canada, Germany, and Australia. Although we do see, some variety, some variations from campaign to campaign. There are some campaigns I've seen where the majority of their audience is based out of Japan. Others that are entirely based out of the US. So it really does depend on the campaign, but on average, we see that most of our backers, most of the people who are excited to support are based out of the US, the UK, Canada, Germany, and Australia. Cool, the next slide. So, what is included as part of Indiegogo and as part of the process? So for those of you who aren't familiar with crowdfunding and maybe are considering your first one, I would break crowdfunding up on Indiegogo into these 4 specific categories. So your pre-launch phase, which is the early phase where you are still preparing for your launch and your crowdfunding process. Then there's the actual crowdfunding campaign, which is the 30 to 60-day campaign that you would run with us on Indiegogo, where you are able to then actually raise the funds and try and get as much of that funding bar filled out as possible. Then if you were 100% successful with that campaign, you were able to roll into something we call in demand, which is the ability to raise funds for however long you'd like. We have campaigns who have been in demand for, upwards of 9 years. This is a program we've had for a really long time now. It's going to be about 10 years actually this year. So we are extremely used to helping campaigns support their product, for however long they'd like to stay on our platform. And then after you're done with crowdfunding as a whole and you really are starting to ship, you can actually sell with IndieShop, which is our online like e-commerce arm. And so I'm going to go into all of these a little bit more in depth, but I just wanted to give you a general overview before I dug in a little bit for all of them. Um, so with pre-launch, this is important to kind of note that this is, I would say, if you think of crowdfunding like an iceberg, the majority of the iceberg is actually just the pre-launch phase. And so you really want to take it slow. You want to put in a lot of time and energy into the time that goes before your launch itself. And so this is when you're thinking about, how am I going to ship and fulfill? This is when you're talking to Matt's team, hopefully, and starting those conversations up. Sometimes those don't really kick off and you don't really know what your needs look like until after your campaign, but it is really important for you to start having those conversations early on during the pre-launch phase. This is also when you're building up your initial audience who is going to support you when your crowdfunding campaign goes live. So you're building out your email lists, you're building out all your messaging, your page, your social media strategy, all of the true deep work is happening during the pre-launch phase. In order to support that, we have a lot of different tools. We have a reservation page that you can build into your Indiegogo pre-launch page. And so again, for anyone who doesn't know, the pre-launch page is just, you could think of it as like a very minimal version of your upcoming crowdfunding campaign. And it'll have just some basic information, just enough to get people excited and sort of tease them about your launch. The goal here is to gather their email address so you can then email them and let them know when your campaign is live, and to kind of include them as part of your email marketing moving forward. But something else that you can do here is collect a reservation deposit. And so this is a way for you to amp up your, understanding of whether or not people are really interested in this product, and, maybe collect a $5 reservation. And that tells you, okay, this person is much more likely to back when the campaign goes live. We also have Campaign Strategy Premium, which is my team actually helps out. I lead our client success team. And so you would be able to get access to a member of my team who could kind of help out with your page build and give you advice on how to do this. And then, of course, introductions to our expert agency partners and Easyship and everyone we know in the network of crowdfunding. During the crowdfunding campaign, there's tons and tons of tools and features that we have. We're always happy to send over some help center articles or talk you through it. But we have dedicated campaign strategists, especially if you're working with the CS Premium program that I mentioned. And we have tailored promotional packages available through our marketing channel. So we're able to then boost your campaign as much as possible during that key 30 to 60 days. And then once you've had your successful campaign, you're able, like I said, to run into in demand for however long you'd like. It's super seamless, and you're just able to roll right in, so you never lose out on raising money on the platform. And we have dedicated promotions for that stage as well, so you're able to continually get access and visibility in front of our audience. And then IndieShop is like what I said, it's our e-commerce arm, and we're just showcasing excited, funded crowdfunding products. And it's a great way for you to sort of establish a consumer base outside of crowdfunding now that you're successful in regularly shipping. Cool. So the next slide that's it, I think, on our end. So I think we're maybe ready for questions. Is that right?
Cool. I think there's one question in here from a shipping perspective, so I can take that first one, Adeeti, if that's cool.
Sure.
Michael asks, what are the pros and cons of media mail? And yeah, it's a good question. So I would say a lot of clients would use media mail, which is like a low cost shipping solution, mainly for like books and publications. Larger items can't go through media mail. So I would say the advantages are it's pretty cheap. And the disadvantages are usually the delivery times are pretty long. The customer service isn't always the best. There isn't necessarily the best tracking from a media mail perspective. So that's why we recommend potentially using a different service. But again, it's relatively cheap. So if you're only concerned with cost, then media mail is probably for you. So hopefully that makes sense. But good question, Michael. The next one, I think a DT. That one might be for you.
Okay, let's see. Is there an upfront cost to having the support of an Indiegogo rep? Yeah, so I think this is a great chance to work with our Indiegogo campaign strategy premium team. And so it's about $100 a month, and you're able to work directly with a member of my team who can jump on a call with you once a month, and you have office hours, a dedicated Slack channel, a special email address where your answers will arrive, within 24 hours. And so we do try our best to support campaigns as much as we can. And so I would say if this is something you're interested in, Campaign Strategy Premium is definitely the way to go. I think there's a question here about the advantages of Indiegogo versus Kickstarter. So, yeah, that's a good question. I think, every platform has its pros and cons. I would say in the case of Indiegogo, obviously I'm pretty biased, but I think we have spent a lot of time being the first to innovate and bring new ideas to market for our campaigners. Like I mentioned, secret perks or some of the other exciting ideas that we've launched. We've had these live for the better part of 10 years now. And so Kickstarter is really just now starting to catch up with some of these. And so it is really cool, I think, to see just how innovative as a platform we've always been. And all of it has been towards an eye to helping our campaigns raise more. And so that's why our averages are so high for each campaign. All of our tools are built with our individual campaigners in mind to try and make sure that they're able to make the most of that campaign. So that way you don't get lost in the noise that is crowdfunding and that is just the overall, internet algorithm. Um, okay, great. Let me see. I'm seeing a question here about for film campaigns, what sorts of perks we typically see. Yeah, this can really vary. I think for film campaigns, we see the film itself being offered usually as like the major one. So you can get a digital download to the film after the film is released. But also people are really excited to support it just as a community. And so thinking of it from the perspective of like, what might my community be interested in? And so sometimes this is, live shows. Sometimes this is like access to a pre-party or a post-launch party or something like that. Sometimes people like to be extras on films. I think that's like a very exciting, cool thing that you would never be able to get access to. And people are often willing to pay a little extra for something like that. And so I think just sort of thinking about like, what might people really, really want? I worked with a film campaign for a TV show that had two very well-known actors who had been in TV shows that had large followings, and they were now doing their own thing. And something that they did was they hosted like online live watches of old episodes. And I think that's kind of a cool way for them to tap into their old communities and bring them into this new thing. And so I think getting really creative about that and trying to think, again, what is the most community minded way for me to do this? Also, there's always cool things like totes and, just like shipping swag for the product itself. As long as you design something beautiful and something that people will want to wear and brag about, it's kind of a win-win. They get something beautiful and you get people wearing your design and your product and advertising for you. So another cool way to use Easyship and just kind of make sure that those arrive to people on time before the film is even made. It's nice to actually have something that you can offer to them before the film is delivered.
Cool. And yeah, I think to piggyback off of that, I saw Rachel, like the second part of your question was kind of the benefits of using a service like Easyship. So I would say number one is since we partner with all of these couriers around the world, like USPS, FedEx, but also local couriers, we have discounted rates that we will be able to provide to you on our platform. So you could either use our platform to generate the labels by yourself. So let's say you're shipping out of your garage, you can use our platform to choose the shipping options, print the labels, put them on your box. Or if you have a lot of volume and you want to outsource it to maybe one of our fulfillment centers, you could also use our fulfillment center so we could handle the labor portion of it. So I would say cost savings is probably the biggest thing because we bring all of these couriers so much volume. We provide those discounted rates to you as the campaigner. See another one for me. It says, are there any strategies for lowering overseas shipping costs? So I would say when it comes to lowering shipping costs, I think it really depends on the volume that you have. So if you have enough volume to move the orders into the region that you're shipping to, then if you ship domestically, let's say within the US or within the EU, that shipping cost is going to be a lot cheaper than if you ship it, let's say, from your factory in China. So again, I would say like the main strategy to decrease shipping costs is going to be moving it to the region that you're shipping to and then fulfilling domestically. I would say that's number one. And then number two is, like I mentioned in the PowerPoint, optimizing your packaging. So figuring out like, hey, does it need to be in this big bulky box? If I put it in a bubble mailer, would it get damaged? Is it okay to do that? Shipping costs potentially would go down if the packaging shrinks. So I would say those are two things that I would recommend to cut costs when it comes to shipping.
Um, I'm also seeing a question here about um, at what point is it a good idea to run your crowdfunding campaign or engage with Indiegogo? And is it, during the prototype stage, the promo stage, and specifically in terms of a hardware offering? So I would say it's never too early. It's a good idea. I guess it depends on like what you mean by engage. So reaching out to the Indiegogo team for support, it's never too early. Like I said, that pre-launch phase is going to be your longest most like deep work stage. And so if you were thinking of launching a product to market, 6 months from now is a very good time to reach out to our team for support to kind of make sure that you're set up for success. In terms of actually launching your campaign, you just want to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row, like I mentioned, doing all your pre-launch efforts and building out that email list, making sure you understand the messaging that people are excited about and the product features that people are excited about before you go live. I would not launch in haste. Sometimes people will launch too early and then they have to unlaunch and then rethink about the whole process. So it's better to take it slow.
Cool. Since Easyship integrates with Shopify, Indiegogo, does Easyship offer tailored solutions? Yes, we do. We integrate with all the main e-commerce sites and platforms, and that's like our whole goal, right? So again, like we want to be able to ship your crowdfunding campaign, but at the end of the day, we want to help you set down roots for an ongoing successful e-commerce business too. So again, the either fulfillment center that we set you up with or the shipping solution that we choose for you, like we want you to be able to use that long term, not just for the crowdfunding campaign. So yeah, hopefully that does answer your question. And yeah, if you also need, let's say, freight services, or you need more information on like box consultations or getting registered for VAT in the EU, we can help through our partner network to get all those questions and ideas answered for you specifically. Um, Hafsa, if you have any specific questions too.
Yeah, so I'm just like going through the questions. If you have any last minute question, guys, please make sure that you are dropping the questions in the question section Q&A tab and not the chat. Yeah, so we're gonna like wait for a few more minutes for the last minute questions. And until then, I think we had a few questions before from this registrations. I think I'll just read it out loud, and Matt and Aditi, you guys can take ahead those questions to answer, right? So the first question is, what are the most overlooked shipping costs in crowdfunding, and how can creators budget effectively to avoid unexpected expenses?
Cool. I could start, Aditi, and if you want to add anything, feel free. So what I would say is like really understanding the breakdown of where costs come from in shipping is really important. So sometimes people only think about the last mile shipping. So think like the USPS or FedExes of the world getting it directly to the customer. But a lot of people don't understand like, hey, it's going to cost money to move the goods from the manufacturer to the fulfillment center. When it arrives at the port, you're gonna have to truck it to that fulfillment center. So really understanding like first mile, last mile, the breakdown of costs is really, really important. And I think sometimes the first mile, like the ocean freight or the air freight and the trucking, that is overlooked when calculating shipping costs. So I would just ask those questions and try and understand that earlier rather than later.
Yeah, and I think I saw another question in here that sort of is parallel to this as well. And so I'll take the time to kind of answer maybe two or three questions at once, which is that, how do you budget best for this campaign and like where are some of the other costs that might go into it? And so shipping is definitely something to start thinking about very, very early and sort of have those ballpark figures in mind as you build the campaign and as you try and understand like what is your overall goal and what are you trying to build to and what do you actually need in order to deliver this product. The other thing I think that sometimes people don't know, it's a bit of a black box, is like, how much do I need to spend on marketing if I'm going to run ads? There was a question in here as well that it's a much larger question, but like, how do I actually even get these emails? We've had webinars on the Indiegogo side about this. I would definitely check it out and sign up for some of our weekly webinars where we go into this. We don't have like a ton of time for this today, but yeah, usually it's the ad budget that helps you get there. And so I would say 20 to 30% of your amount that you want to raise eventually is how much you should set aside for ads and marketing budget in order to help you get there. It's a, crappy phrase to hear, but like it takes money to make money, unfortunately. That is just kind of the reality of the noise on the internet these days. And so, yeah, 20 to 30% is a good ballpark figure to sort of start with. And you can start slow and build up as you understand what your audience is looking for. So you don't need to spend it all at once. Then there's a lot of other hidden things. But again, this is a much longer conversation. I would say the big bulk of your budget should be for the crowdfunding campaign, your ads.
Cool. And yeah, before you go on to the next one, Hafsa, I think I see Mark in here asked about like average cost for shipping something that's 50 pounds. I would just reach out to me directly. I don't have an exact ballpark. It depends on the dimensions of the product. Is it really 50 pounds? Is it going to be larger, volumetric, weight wise? So my email is in here, matt@easyship.com. If you guys have any questions about shipping, want to get costs, just shoot me an email. Would love to jump on a discovery call, understand some of your needs, and then be able to give you a tailored quote. So hopefully, Mark, I saw your message. So
Yeah.
awesome.
So I've dropped Matt and Aditi's email IDs in the chat, so feel free to just like drop them an email if you actually have any questions and want to reach out to them directly. I think they'll be more than happy to help you out with it. So yeah. We have next question, which is how can campaign creators choose the right fulfillment models, self-fulfillment, 3PL, or regional warehouses to optimize delivery time and costs?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I alluded to this a little bit earlier. It really just depends on the volume that you have, right? So if you have like 50 backers, it's probably not going to make sense to open up fulfillment centers in 3 different regions. It probably would make sense to just do what we call self-fulfill. So fulfilling from your garage or from your house. You can still use Easyship to do that. You can print out the labels on our platform and put them on your boxes. But let's say you have like thousands of orders in the EU and 2,000 orders in the US. Like I mentioned earlier, it probably makes sense to have 2 different fulfillment centers to fulfill domestically to your EU market and your US market to really cut down on costs. So I would really say it all comes down to volume. And the more volume you have, the more ways you can cost optimize your shipments.
I think we have one question in the Q&A tab. So it says, do you think it makes sense for campaigners to raise small amount on multiple platforms or focus on one with a higher goal? Yeah.
That's a good question. So I would say multiple platforms, I don't think it's a good idea to run a campaign at the exact same time on multiple platforms ever. That is always a bad idea, just because what you end up doing is you end up splitting people's attention. And so if they're Googling your product name and it's 2 or 3 different platforms are showing up and then your own site, you're going to really confuse them with like, which one of these is real? Is one of these a scam? You know what? It's not worth it. I don't want to deal with this anymore. So choose one platform and go with it while the campaign is running. It is a good idea, however, for people to split it into sometimes multiple goals. And so there's a few different ways of doing this. You can have stretch goals during your actual campaign. So you can say that, our original funding goal is 50K. We will be thrilled if we get there and we'll be able to build this much. Now, if we get 100K, this is how much more we can do. And then if we do 150K, this is what we can do. So you can really give people an idea of like where that dollar is stretching. The other thing that you can do is just run multiple crowdfunding campaigns. Again, for 50K, 50K, 50K. There's a film campaigner that I'm thinking of who will do this for all of his films that he runs with us, where he'll run one film campaign and he'll raise a bunch of money. And then he'll run like 3 smaller ones kind of in the few months after that to get the final production costs done and tied up. And so this has worked really well for him as a strategy. And I would recommend, maybe trying something like that out also.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. I think we have one last question, which is what are the biggest challenges in international shipping for crowdfunding, and how can creators proactively address customs, taxes, and regulatory hurdles?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would say I would really focus on like the international portion of it because again, if you have a good amount of volume in the United States, for instance, and let's say even in the EU, it's pretty easy to move the goods to the US, ship domestically, move the goods to the EU and ship domestically. But when it comes to those like maybe one-off countries in the APAC region, maybe South America, it's sometimes difficult because it is pretty expensive to ship to those regions, right? But all I can say is like we'll be able to provide you some options to ship really anywhere in the world and be able to provide you like the necessary information and documents to ship, right? Understanding what those taxes and duties are going to be, how to import into this specific region, we'll be able to provide all of that for you. And then what you can do is like, hey, if it's a relatively heavy product and it's expensive to ship, you can let backers know, hey, it is actually pretty expensive to ship to your region. These are the details. This is how much it's going to cost. We can facilitate this through Easyship, but we're at least going to give the most transparent and fully landed cost to you specifically. So I would say like the biggest challenge international shipping is like those one-off countries where you probably have 3 to 5 backers that ends up being really, really expensive. We can help ship there for sure. But I think it really comes down to letting customers and backers know early on what those estimates are going to be so they're not surprised when it comes to the shipping costs down the line.
Great. So if you guys are having any last minute questions, I would really appreciate if you guys can add right now. I think we've covered most of the questions from the Q&A tab. We're just going to have a look for any last minute questions that we have. And until then, any details that you need from Matt and Adeeti have dropped their email IDs in the chat. Go and just drop an email and any queries that you have for Easyship and Indiegogo. And yeah, I think we don't have any questions. So yeah, let's wrap it up. And that was an insightful discussion. Thank you, Matt and Adeeti. You guys were great. And thank you for sharing your expert insights. And I think obviously looking at the questions and the energy from the audience, they really loved it. And glad to have you guys on board in the panel. And thank you everyone who joined us today. And we hope this session has given you a valuable takeaway to optimize your crowdfunding fulfillment and shipping strategies. Let us know how did you find the webinar in the chat. And we're very happy to have such an engaging audience today. And we see a lot of questions and a lot of icebreakers and conversations. I think that's something that we really appreciate. And we would love to get this energy in every webinar that we conduct going forward. So yeah, thank you once again, Matt and Adeeti, and it was great having you guys. We'll look forward for more sessions with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thank you again.